Following on from the last video, let's go through why the Essential 8 meets our requirements as a small business. The Essential 8 is a tiered security framework. You start at maturity level 0 and can work your way up to maturity level 3. There are 8 strategies in the Essential 8, which are each simple and generic enough for any business to implement. Each strategy has between 3 and 8 controls to implement, where a good chunk are single configuration settings, or a free tool may help us manage multiple controls. For context, the Essential 8 is an extract of the ACSC's strategies to mitigate cybersecurity incidents. It is, quite literally, the 8 strategies in this document with a rating of essential. If you want to take a look at the rest, the link's here for you. Diving into the maturity levels, these can be seen as levels of security. At level 0, you've got nothing. Imagine you left the front door of your house open when you went out. You're open to any opportunistic attacker that may just wander past. At level 1, following the analogy, you've closed that front door, but if someone's targeting you specifically, they may come through a side window to get around that locked door. At maturity level 2, you've closed the front door and you've got a checklist for when you leave home to go and check all the windows are locked. That's an equivalent of a cybersecurity program. At level 3, you've locked that front door, you've had your checklist and gone around and checked all the windows, and you've got a monitored alarm service where someone actively looks after your house while you're away. Obviously, this is for a higher risk area and comes at a higher cost. Our focus is maturity level 1. We don't have the budget, expertise, or resources to get much better than that, but that's enough for us. Generally speaking, threats won't be specifically targeted at us. Our threats come from attackers just looking for any target that's easy to find and exploit. Therefore, our goal is to put up defenses against common weaknesses and low-hanging fruit. Simply, don't be an easy target and have a backup if something goes wrong. As mentioned, each strategy is made up of controls. But how will we assess these controls during this course? This is where we get into evidence quality. Generally, we will be showing proof that a risk has been mitigated by a control. But not all evidence is created equal. When assessing a control, the best evidence is actually testing to make sure it's working. This is the excellent level. During this course, we will either show a control action or give a before and after comparison. We're focusing on that excellent, and we're going to show it working. Now that we know about the Essential 8, why we're using it, and what our target maturity level is, we can begin to actually implement controls for these strategies. Throughout this course, we'll follow the same basic flow for each of the strategies. First, I'll give you the textbook definition of each control in a strategy. I will then simplify them for our case. And finally, we'll actually implement them in our test environment. The assessment plan I'm working through is pulled from the ASD's example assessment checklist plan, maturity level 1, August 2024 edition. It can be found here. By the time you're watching this, the assessment version may have moved on. Most of the time, there's no major changes in there. I mentioned our test environment. Let's take a look at that now. For this course, we'll be using this lab as our example business. I've designed it to replicate a typical small to medium enterprise, and it includes an on-premises domain controller running server 22, an example web server using IIS and SQL, and this one's running on server 2016. Got 2 workstations with Office, PDF Reader, which is Acrobat, and a couple of browsers. And lastly, this all sits on a flat network behind a pfSense router. This lab won't replicate every environment, but it works for our course. If you don't have a domain controller and are running standalone devices, the lessons and actions are fundamentally the same. From here, I'll implement the controls in an order that makes sense for this course. We'll start with a bit of early setup, which will help us push out config later on. If you want to jump to a specific control first, feel free, but be warned. Some of these strategies build on top of each other, and you may miss out on key information earlier on. With that in mind, let's move on to our first control.